Hello, welcome to Are You Convinced, a brand new podcast that we're doing. My name is James. With me is Damon.
Hello, everybody. How are you, James?
I'm good, Damon. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good. So this is a brand new podcast that we've decided to do. You came to me with this idea a couple of weeks ago, and we've been discussing it, and here we are. It's about to happen. Do you want to talk about what it is we're doing here?
Well, firstly, I feel like a father waiting in the maternity ward for my baby to be born so I can find out exactly what it is and how much it's going to cost me in future and how many sleepless nights I'm going to have over it. But it's really exciting. The basic premise of the show is that each week there will be an overarching topic. The topic will be different from show to show. And you and I will both just choose something within that topic. We will mine that topic heavily for gold. Hopefully we come out with gold and we try to convince the other person on our topic. We might come at it with a question. Maybe we come at it with a certain topic in mind. But the premise of the show is that I'll be trying to convince James of something and then James will try to convince me of something. Does that about sum it up?
Yeah, I think that sums it up. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. That pretty much makes sense. Yeah?
I guess so. I mean, we need to make it known that we are amateurs at this. So everything we do in this podcast should be as amateurish as possible so that people don't, keep expectations low early.
Initially, and just until we get started.
Until we get better and better at this, which we invariably will, surely.
But that's a great point to start off on because we don't even know how this is going to be brought to people just yet.
I don't even know how this microphone in front of me works, James, let alone how people at home are listening to this.
That's why you came to me, isn't it? Really, you told me straight out was you can't do the tech stuff.
I have ideas and nothing else. I have no talents. I have no abilities. James, help me.
I'm really great at Googling. It's my skill. But yeah, we haven't even figured out quite how to get this to people. If people are listening right now, they've obviously figured it out.
Well done,
we've done something right. We've got it to the people.
I'd prefer to think the people have done something right if they managed to find this because...
on my hard drive when
right.
I was sleeping.
Can you please return James's computer if that's the case? He has work to do on it. He relies on it for his income.
But I think the plan is it will at least definitely be on my YouTube channel.
That's right.
And we're going to try to get it on iTunes.
Mm.
And hopefully these shows, these podcasts, they should be up every Sunday is the plan at this stage.
That's right.
And
hopefully.
Through what platforms we're yet to determine, but we'll keep you updated through our social medias, which we'll cover that at the end of the show.
I think so.
Because we're stalling a little bit here. Let's get into it. So what's the topic we're going into this week, Damon?
Well, we've decided today to start very light and fluffy and controversial as hell. We've decided to start out with cryptozoology.
Excellent.
Cryptozoology, something that if you spend a little bit of time online, you'll quickly find people are pretty well divided on.
It's half of YouTube, isn't it?
I think so.
Theories and videos and it's crazy.
Absolutely. I love that rabbit hole. It's something, I think I mentioned this to you when we decided on this topic, but it's actually a guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah.
I really love, my topic in particular is something very close to me, something I love wasting. No,
not wasted.
Time is never wasted when you're learning, James.
Yeah, or when you're enjoying it.
When you're enjoying it, it's never wasted. And I thoroughly love watching all gamut of people from the highly intelligent to the what's the kind way of saying this? The
stupid.
I was going to say
kind way.
I was going to say not highly intelligent. No, the rural
the
folk.
Academically disabled. Is that
Trump voters?
Oh,
is what.
Wow, straight off the bat, we've just divided like half of our listeners.
I know.
So one person stopped listening.
We're destroying our fan base early. Anyway, we should stop stalling, absolutely.
So yeah, like for people that don't know, that haven't gone down that YouTube rabbit hole, what is it? Describe cryptozoology.
Cryptozoology, as listed in the dictionary, is a noun. Cryptozoology refers to the search for and study of animals whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated, such as the Loch Ness Monster and the Yeti. Now, we were talking a little bit before the show that the key phrase here is existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated.
You were talking sort of it doesn't really just apply to sort of mythological creatures.
Not at all.
You said it also can apply to extinct animals, or obviously animals that are believed to be extinct.
Two of the most famous of those one which has since been proven to be alive today on the planet, and another one which is still disputed. Again, this might date horribly. We don't know what the weekend's going to...
Tomorrow, like brand new information just found.
All over the front page of the internet, discovered. No, the famous one from our neck of the woods, of course, is the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, which was thought to have gone extinct in the 1940s or 50s, I want to say. The last one died in Hobart Zoo. But since then, and even very recently, we were laughing about this earlier, that some very grainy footage has emerged on YouTube, and it's been up on all the major news sites here in Australia. The thylacine, is it still alive? And because I'm a bit of a conservationalist. I'm a bit of a greenie.
Yes.
I want...
Really?
Really? I really am. Actually, the shirt I'm wearing right now has got green on it. That's how bad I am. But I really would love for this thing to be real. And I think that's sort of the appeal behind cryptozoology, is that it lends to a bit of hope. The other one that I was going to mention before I get started was the coelacanth, which is a prehistoric fish.
Okay, yes.
Which we thought to be extinct for millions of years.
I know it from the Pokemon. That's Relicanth.
There you go.
That's my connection.
No,
that's
however you make connection.
I know. That's how I remember. So you're saying that people discovered that recently?
It was, by recently I mean within the last 100 years.
Okay.
It was thought to be extinct. We knew it from fossils. Extensive fossil evidence, until one of them was brought up by a trawler net off the coast of Madagascar. They went down with, some deep sea, I don't know, I don't even know how microphones work, so I don't know what equipment you use to film an extinct fish, but they found just thousands of the buggers down there.
Submarines and cameras?
Cameras, I thought you said camels. Submarines and camels.
Yes, and camels.
Camels, because someone's got to shoot the footage, and we're not going to use people, so...
Camels are really good at it.
Apparently, they're dispensable as well, in case they get crushed by the huge ocean pressures. But this coelacanth fish, alive and well, huge breeding populations, and I think that's where the hope in cryptozoology comes in. For a lot of people, they use that as an example of, well, we didn't know this thing was out there.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we found it, just a bit of looking and a bit of luck, and we found a huge population of them in an area of the world that humans otherwise would not have visited.
Yeah.
So on that, I guess, do you want me to launch into my topic?
Well, I mean, you're going first. Was your idea, so we thought you could take the lead on this one.
Dangerous.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I think all we're going to prove in this episode is that you are the master preparer. You are the one that turned up with everything sorted, and I'm the one going, God, I hope I spell checked this.
Nobody will know if you spell checked it. It's okay.
Very true.
Nobody can see. That's the great thing about podcasting. It's all audio, no visual.
It's great because we're ugly buggers as well on top of that. So.
But yeah, dive into it. Convince me of what you're going to convince me. What is your subject?
Well, I'm going to try and convince you today, James, that, and importantly here, your opinions are your own. Yes. You're entitled to them.
I think so, yeah.
But if they're wrong, they're wrong.
Yep.
So I'm going to try and prove all of your opinions and all of your preconceptions about Bigfoot completely wrong.
Okay.
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, skunk ape, the Yeti. Depending on where you are in the world, this thing's got a whole bunch of different names. Okay. All right. So reasons for Bigfoot. I've broken them down into categories. So bear with me. We haven't actually seen each other's reports, so this will be new for both of us.
Yeah.
Number one, I've titled this one cross-cultural. All over the planet, in similar or comparable climates and elevations, we hear anecdotal evidence for an unidentified creature that fits the description of Bigfoot. Large, hairy, bipedal creatures have been part of myth and legend across several countries in Asia and North America.
Okay.
Have I lured you in yet?
Well, I'm interested, yes.
Well, there's a lot more to come.
Okay.
So
the podcast's over. He's done it.
This is going to be easy. You're so easily convinced. Just like Trump voters. No, Damon, stop. The biomes where we find the most evidence for these creatures are the high mountainous regions of the Himalayas and the temperate rainforests of North America, so US and Canada. We also find some evidence in the swamps of the southern United States, around Florida and around the Everglades, but I'll get to that in a bit. I'll also just throw it in right now. I'm going to focus mostly on the North American versions of this, not because we're Eurocentric or anything like that. It's just this is where most of the evidence I've found has come from. So, I'm not dismissing anything in Asia or the Himalayas. Yep. It's just easier to find evidence in the States. So the people that live in these regions, pre-European contact, all developed myths and legends around these beasts. Cultures who have been separated by vast distances all have similar, and I'm using the word myths in inverted commas here because they were pretty real to them, detailing large, hairy, wild men that roamed the wilds.
Wild hairy men in the wild.
In the wild.
Okay.
Where else would you expect to find wild men?
At
Kmart.
Target.
Definitely Target. Some of these creatures include the Yeren in China, the Almas of Russia and Mongolia, the Alma, also a pub not far from where we live. I wonder if they know what they're named after. The Yeti of the Himalayan countries, the Orang Pendek of Indonesia, and many, many more. Basically, go to a part of the world, like stick a pin in a globe, they've got some story about a large bipedal hairy creature.
I mean, that's something I've always found interesting about the myth of Bigfoot is that, every place, they're not always called Bigfoot, but the description's the same and they all have their own word.
Almost always.
I mean, some people describe a similar creature in Australia, which we refer to as the Yowie.
The Yowie, that's right. Also a delicious brand of chocolate that came with toys inside.
It just came back, didn't it? Didn't they just bring them back?
Don't tell me that.
I think it's happening.
Really?
If it hasn't happened already, I think they're coming back.
What are we doing here?
Well, I don't know. We're getting Yowies up.
Why are we not stockpiling on Yowies? Wow.
But yeah, no, I find that fascinating. Like you said, the Yeti, sort of in the Himalayas. In Canada, it's Sasquatch. Where does skunk ape come from?
So skunk ape's an interesting one. It's, for all intents and purposes, if we're coming at this from the angle that this is a real creature, it's basically a Bigfoot that, I don't know, went on holidays, got lost, ended up in the swamps of the Everglades.
Okay.
And has been hanging out, living and surviving there ever since.
In board shorts and...
In board shorts, that's right. They've got hovercrafts to get around the swamps.
Yeah.
What do they call those? It's not a hovercraft.
Airboat.
Airboats. Yeah. I've now just got this image
I
of
went on one just recently. I should know this.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you see any skunk ape?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know if this is going well or badly. Okay. There's also another... In North America alone, you've got these different names. We talked about Sasquatch. There's also the Wendigo, which is a term used in Canada. The sort of First Nations people of Canada often refer to it as a Wendigo.
Okay.
The Ohio Grassman, which to my ear, the Ohio Grassman does not sound like a Bigfoot.
It sounds like a company, a lawn mowing company.
Wow.
The Ohio Grassman. Call him now.
Yours is much more PC than where I was going to go.
He was supposed to mow my lawn. All he did was sell me weed.
Oh, lordy. Skunk ape that I've talked about, and the most popular is Sasquatch. So I'm going to go between calling it Sasquatch and Bigfoot. They're easily...
all the same creature.
All the same creature, effectively.
Or, related to some degree.
For the sake of my argument, they're the same creature.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Okay, so let's go into some theories around Bigfoot and what people think about it. So there are many origins, many theories surrounding the creature and its origin, I should say. If we just rule out hoaxes right now off the bat, if we just rule those out, we rule out misidentification. We've got to concede both of those two things almost certainly happen.
Of course.
We just have to concede that. But if we just take it as read that those two things aren't true, the most likely explanation for a Sasquatch is that it's a remnant species of humanoid. So I don't know if you know this, James, but we're not the only people out there. We arrived on this planet relatively late. Before us, there were literally hundreds of species of hominids. The most common, the most well-known was the Neanderthal.
Yeah.
They got to Europe before we did, and we basically rocked up and became the worst flatmates ever when we got there. Homo erectus came out of Africa, moved into Europe. We ate all their food. We
probably
had
breeded with them. I'm led to understand there is still a lot of Neanderthal DNA.
There is,
but obviously, generally, Neanderthals gone now.
Well, presumably, I mean, I've worked in some pretty intense places, and
I've seen a few Neanderthals in my time.
Oh boy, have I seen some noses and some sloped foreheads in my line of work. But anyway, but no, DNA evidence concludes that there is a fair amount of Neanderthal in modern humans today. It's almost a given that we crossbred at some point, whether in one big mass event.
What a party!
I know, right? Bring your friends. The
more the merrier.
Just a casual hangout in our cave. Bring a few people. Bring some wine. We'll play some music. See where it goes. and let's see if we can birth a brand new strain of humanity.
That sounds great.
Anyway, this went weird. So Neanderthals were around in Europe. We arrived, and through a combination of factors, Neanderthal went extinct. But there have also been other brands of humans. A very famous one in the last few years that we found was Homo floresiensis. Have you heard of this?
I haven't actually, no.
No? What if I said the Hobbit?
Okay. Hairy feet and all?
Hairy feet and all. Well, hairy bodies. Okay. So Florence is a small island in Indonesia. And very recently, pretty sure it was an Australian bloke that discovered it, actually.
All right.
Yeah. They discovered teeny tiny little human remains on this island of Florence. What was remarkable about these remains was that it was a whole civilization of people, and they were all small in stature. They were all in proportion, so it wasn't a case of dwarfism.
Okay.
It wasn't a strange leper colony where people sent their little people or whatever. I mean, that's horrible. But people in the past did weird things, James. No. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? It's pretty well asserted that they were a new strain of humanity that we found, and they were about the same size as the Lord of the Rings hobbits. From what we can tell.
Like 3-4 feet.
Yeah, just very, very, very small people.
I do actually sort of roughly know that fact.
There you go.
Lord of the Rings, sorry.
But what's... Anyway, the important thing about this discovery is that these creatures, these Homo floresiensis, lived at the same time as modern humans.
Okay, wow.
So they were not extinct when we reached Europe. But it sort of leads more to the point that there have been and could well be isolated pockets of neo-hominids, early primitive hominids still living on the planet. What we know about humanity is very limited.
I see where you're going with this.
You see where I'm going with this?
I see where you're going. Yep.
So the logical conclusion, James.
Littlefoot.
Absolutely. We've got Bigfoot wrong this whole time. It's actually a hobbit on stilts with big rubber feet on them.
Yeah.
That's the only conclusion we can draw.
3 of them stacked on top of each other in a gorilla suit. That's where the video comes from.
Getting up to all sorts of shenanigans. Okay, so the evidence for Bigfoot. Most scientists dismiss the notion of Bigfoot due to the apparent lack of evidence for the creature. And you sort of can't blame them. Like science, as a field, as an industry, it doesn't lend itself to faith or just believing something because someone says so. That's why it's science. However, evidence abounds in the form of sightings, historical claims, what we've talked about with the Native American peoples, the First Nations peoples, all around the world sightings that are pretty coherent, that all fit a similar description, hair samples, and of course, footprints. Footprints is how we get the name Bigfoot.
Yeah.
There was a construction crew building a new road somewhere in California, roughly the 1940s, 1950s. That should be a fact that I have in front of me, but lo and behold, it's not. They were building a road. They found really large footprints, which a little bit of forethought and some concrete, they were able to take a cast. And that's where the term Bigfoot came from. And lo and behold, after that, so many sightings emerged.
Of course.
Of course, because he put it in people's heads and they see it. But, just made him famous all of a sudden. More evidence include, like I mentioned, hair samples. Quite a lot of those go to, there's a whole industry in the States of people that research Bigfoot and make claims, and they get these hair samples and these footprint casts
Where
sent
are these
to
hair
them.
samples coming from?
Hair, James.
No, but where are they being found?
From Bigfoot, presumably, James.
No, that's.
Are you okay? Are you
who?
struggling with this concept?
Where are they finding these hair? Like, are they out in the woods and they
Yes.
see on a stump? Oh, look, a hair. That's pretty good eyesight.
I think I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's dubious.
Yeah.
I'm trying to convince you of something, but there's.
So stop shutting down my argument. Trying to convince you. Shut up.
No, well, what's important here is that we've got to sort of sort the wheat from the chaff. Like some evidence is more compelling than others.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get to why that may be very soon, I promise. Some of the more famous evidence of Bigfoot come from a bloke called Grover Krantz, which is automatically the best name I've heard all week, straight away. Grover
Anybody
Krantz.
with the name Grover that can pull it off.
Hello, everybody.
Exactly.
I've discovered Bigfoot. Anyway, Footprints are perhaps the best evidence. I'm going back to script, James. Footprints are perhaps the best evidence we have for the creature, as they are hard to fake. And casts of these prints are easy to handle and study in sterile conditions like a lab. Some have also provided unique and interesting traits that are either hard or impossible to replicate. During the 1960s, I'm going to say 1962.
Okay.
It was a Monday morning. 100% fact, didn't make that up.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Grover Krantz of Washington State University. This is where a lot of North American sightings happen, by the way.
Washington State University.
Washington State University, specifically. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's sort of northwest sort of region.
He's just returning his college textbooks. What are you talking about?
There he is, crossing the cloisters, playing hacky sack and ultimate frisbee. Anyway, Dr. Grover Krantz from Washington University, he had a set of casts sent to him. One of the sets of casts showed an anatomical feature on the foot, which was made by an upright walking primate or an artist with an expert on primate foot anatomy. This is what he concluded.
Is that a specific field, primate foot anatomy?
Oh, God, I hope so. What's a podiatrist is what studies human feet, is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
There's got to be some ape podiatrists. Gorillas have to get ingrown toenails, surely, or they need orthotics. Anyway,
Great idea.
He had these sent in, and he basically looked at them and said, no, these are either the best fake I've ever heard of or could imagine, or they're real. And the reason he said that is because they had evidence of something called dermal ridges. Now, they're similar to fingerprints. If you were to look at your hand right now, you'll notice that there are, we often call them, fortune lines. People try to tell your fortune on them, which is maybe another topic for another day. It's bullshit. But they're very hard to replicate. They're unique to every person, just like your fingerprints. And these casts that Dr. Krantz looked over had these ridges. Some of them also provided evidence of injuries. So at least one foot cast that he examined had a very noticeable dip in the middle of the foot, which was a sign of the animal walking with a slight limp.
Uh-huh.
So why would someone... I mean, you go to great detail to try to hoax someone or to try to prank someone, but that's some very specific detail that someone's gone into there. They've given this creature a backstory.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. Beginning in the late 1990s and continuing for the next 10 years, a fingerprint expert, Jimmy Chilcutt, I hope I got that right, Chilcutt?
Chilcutt. You talk about Grover, but Chilcutt, that's one hell of a name.
It's not bad, is it? Jimmy, I wonder if he's Jimmy or if he's a James. Okay. Jimmy Chilcutt. James, no, let's get formal here. James Chilcutt. James Chilcutt III.
Okay.
Oh, but he's from Texas, so maybe not. He's definitely Jimmy Chilcutt. I'm not going to do accents. Began examining details in track casts obtained in various parts of the country. He noticed distinct dermal ridges in a lot of the casts. Some of the nearly microscopic details showed heel scars where the skin had been previously cut or damaged. Some of the casts showed larger longitudinal ridges, which were also thought to be dermal ridges originally. Basically, that refers to when you look at your hand, the really long lines in your palm.
Okay. Yep.
Again, very hard to fake, very hard to replicate. Other researchers later demonstrated that these larger longitudinal ridges could have been created inadvertently in the process of pouring the liquefied pasta.
Pasta?
That's how you make a
liquefied pasta.
That's exactly how you make a cast of a footprint. You boil up some spaghetti, some ravioli.
Some fettuccine. That was fantastic.
Well done.
I'm going home now.
Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Can I Convince You? Are you convinced?
Are you convinced?
Get the title right.
Excellent. All right, so plaster.
Could have been made when you're pouring the plaster into the footprint.
Okay.
Could have been. But the level of detail that this guy's managed to find in some of these casts, he says it's just absurd to think that every single one of these has been stuffed up specifically in the same way.
Okay.
So if you look at two casts, they've got these long dermal ridges, these long longitudinal ridges across them from two different sites across the country. What, is there one guy with one pouring technique traveling all across the United States?
So they're assuming that these two footprints that have been found in different locations are the exact same creature. Yeah, like he's traveled that far and
Oh no, I mean they're all Bigfoot. They're different.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying it's the exact same foot. He's got the exact same longitudinal line.
Well, actually, this does hit on a really interesting point.
That far.
It's assumed that Bigfoot is a species of creature.
Yeah, no.
We sort of talk about Bigfoot as though it's
one creature.
As one creature.
Yeah.
So that's not not a silly mistake to make, James.
Oh, it wasn't really a mistake. I was just wondering if they were theorizing that this was the exact same foot.
No, okay, no.
Is that what the lines were so perfect?
No, well, he had different casts sent in from all over the country. Yeah, and when you see scarring and things like that on feet, you've got to assume that they're unique individuals with their own, again, their own backstories.
Yeah.
If I was to say to you, though, if I was to mention the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell to you?
It certainly does. It's the most famous piece of footage, essentially.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
When anybody thinks of Bigfoot, they would picture this image.
They do.
This film and this particular image, a snapshot, I guess, from that film.
That's right. Roger Patterson. I didn't know this before I started researching. He was a rodeo rider from Yakima, Washington.
Okay.
And he had a keen interest in all of these Bigfoot sightings, which were cropping up all across the United States.
Yep.
Keen outdoorsman. He grabbed his friend Bob Gimlin. They went out on horseback with a rented 16mm camera. I'm not a tech expert, so I couldn't tell you what that camera looks like.
Old-fashioned.
Not important.
It wasn't digital. It was analog. It was film and everything, like
that's
actual
right.
film.
Exactly. It was not an iPhone, which is what they would have been filming it on today. So they went
somehow it still would have turned out grainy and blurry.
Exactly.
As they always do.
Yeah, exactly. So they went down to a place called Bluff Creek in Northern California. The footage has been looked at by everyone, all and sundry, Bigfoot, believers, skeptics alike. But for 40 years, no one's been able to categorically prove it fake.
Okay,
that's a key detail here. So that doesn't mean necessarily that it's true. It just means no one's been able to come up with concrete evidence as to why we shouldn't keep studying it.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the important detail here. We should be giving credence to every bit of proof we find. Don't just dismiss it offhand. Over the years, several people have confessed, in inverted commas, in air quotes, have confessed to wearing a suit and walking along the creek for them to film that day. But for every one of them that have come out, there's been a story about them being a crackpot and that they've hoaxed other Bigfoot things, but they weren't actually there that day. And
you're saying several people have admitted to being the one person in that video being filmed walking.
Wearing a gorilla suit.
You got to question that straight away. Why is more than one person coming forward to admit?
Very true. And there's a lot to gain out of this. It's famous footage.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately people say, why fake it? Well, why do anything? Like, why start a podcast in your mate's living room? It's for fame and notoriety, which is why we're doing this. No, but some people, I think there are some people that wake up in the morning and think, how do I get my face out there? How do I become known? How do I fill a gap in my life? And obviously these people found a way. Faking.
Before Facebook and YouTube, before all of that.
Remarkable, isn't it?
Before you could post your fails on YouTube. No, but I actually, talking about, obviously they've discussed that this is potentially a person in a suit. Yep. And I'm going to help your argument here.
Please do.
I'll just jump in.
Please do.
I did actually hear from a documentary years ago the idea that when it was being analyzed, that footage, there were people that sort of said they would analyze the muscle movements, the actual, the movement of the whole body of this creature. And there were several researchers that said that it would be completely unnatural and really hard to do for a human to walk in the manner. He's sort of a little bit hunched over, shoulders kind of forward. Yep. It would be really hard for a human to walk that far in that sort of posture.
That's right. And when you really look into the footage, it's not just like the posture, absolutely, but it's such an unnatural looking gait. And you could argue, it's unnatural because it's a guy in a suit. But a suit should move with the body. So someone's created this brand new walking stance, which is so uncomfortable and so cumbersome. The arms and legs on this creature are completely out of proportion for what you'd expect for a human. Interestingly enough, the costume designer from the original Planet of the Apes films. Now, you would think he'd have a bit of knowledge into how to make an ape look real on screen.
You would hope so.
He won awards. He won Emmys, I think, for Planet of the Apes.
Or Oscars.
I'm sorry, he won Oscars for his costume design. And he's looked over the footage. I've seen him in a documentary looking over the footage and saying that's either a costume sent back in time from the future, because in 1967 we did not have the technology to make it look that convincing.
Okay.
Or it's real.
Yep.
And that was his professional opinion. And I've even seen footage of people trying to replicate these sort of suits, and the movement is so hard to get down. Like you said, the muscle strands and everything that you can see, you've got to zoom in and really focus on it.
Yeah.
One more interesting thing, researchers have identified Paddy, as the creature has affectionately become known, as female.
Okay.
Breasts can be seen in the footage. There's even some theory as to whether or not the animal might have been pregnant at the time. I think some people have studied that film a lot closer than I have. But that's just me.
You need to find a new hobby.
I think so. Yeah. Okay. Now, we talked before about, you said, where do they find the hair? Where do people find these footprints? If Bigfoot was real, why isn't he just walking down the street, shedding hair everywhere and leaving footprints?
I mean, the footprints I get. I just
Sure.
don't imagine people, going for a casual stroll through the woods and they just see a few bits of hair stuck to, and they immediately assume Bigfoot.
Well, hunters actually use hair samples quite a lot.
Okay.
So if you were walking past a barbed wire fence or some prickly bushes, if you're a hunter, if you're a trained eye, you'd look closer because animals brushing up against those things leave chunks of hair behind.
All right. Well, that makes sense.
It's often a handy thing when you're hunting, because remember, Americans will hunt anything that moves. Section number 4, shrinking range and decomposition. I promise this is the last bit because I've been going for a while. Skeptics would argue that without a body, we have no physical proof of the creature. However, what needs to be understood is that a creature this large, which would require a large territory and need a lot of food, would naturally have a low population. There's a phenomenon in nature where top predators, alpha predators, your lions, tigers, bears, oh my, they all have the smallest, what we call the smallest biomass within that region. That basically means if you were to cut out a section of the environment, like 10 by 10 kilometer track, and get every single creature in that and weigh them,
Yep.
the top predators would weigh the least. There'd be the least amount of top predators, and as you go down the food chain, there's more and more and more creatures. Yeah.
All right. Yep.
So we assume that Bigfoot's at the top of the food chain, so there's already smaller amounts of them out there. Think about the shrinking population of these two as the environment that they live in shrinks. So I actually Googled this Bluff Creek area today where Patterson-Gimlin footage was filmed.
Okay.
And I encourage listeners to do the same. It's remarkable. Remember that for a good 40-year period, that was the Wild West. That was where Deadwood was. That was where, that show Westworld? That's what that was based on.
I was going to say, Westworld's in the future, man.
That's a whole other bag of cats. But, it was disputed territory. It was one of the last areas of the mainland United States to be settled properly, right? So Bigfoot could have been running around mad as anything. Just walking down the main street. Not the main street. That wasn't built yet. No, but you get my point.
I do understand. The trails.
That's right, yeah. And if you look at that area, Northern California leading up to Oregon State, where Portland is, it's some of the most urbanized land in the US. You've been to California.
Yeah.
It's the land of highways, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, they're now confined. Wildlife is now confined to these national parks. And that is something that America does really well. They were one of the first countries to have designated parks.
Yes.
Just to leave and be nature, which is big tick. Good on them. But if you imagine you're an alpha predator, already a small population, and all of a sudden your habitat is ringed in on all sides by these creatures, these highly advanced, highly mobile, dangerous creatures.
Sorry, you can leave, but if you want to come back in, it's $30, sir.
I've now got an image of a Bigfoot family with Dad at the front going, I've got a pass here somewhere. Where is that annual pass? I think it's in my other wallet. Dad, can we go in? Not now. Don't start, please. Help.
No, sorry, they're ringed in, yes.
They're all ringed in. So you can imagine how if there is a population of Sasquatch out there, it must be a shrinking population.
Yes.
They must be an endangered species. The other important detail, why have we not found a body? Why have we not found one decomposing by the roadside somewhere? Fair question. If Bigfoot stay to these secluded areas, to these deep wooded areas, decomposition happens very quickly in those areas.
Yeah, okay.
There's footage on YouTube that you can look up that I'll try and find a link and put it in the description of a deer decomposing right in the middle of the woods. And because it's
excellent.
Great viewing. Essential viewing. There's so much bacteria on a forest floor and so many microorganisms and bugs and scavengers.
And scavengers, general creatures just looking for a feed.
And it decomposes so much quicker than, let's say, the desert. And then in the forest, there's lots of leaf litter that just covers the remains. So there's a good chance that when you go hiking, you might be walking over long rotted Bigfoot and you'd never know it.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's very hard to find a carcass just lying there in the woods. Mistaken identity is something we've got to talk about. A lot of sightings we have to assume are actually bears, most likely black bears. If you look at a black bear next to a brown bear, they're a lot leaner, they're a lot sleeker, they've got longer arms and legs. There's one great big problem. Bears seldom walk around in the wild on their hind legs.
Yeah.
And most of the footage that we see, most of the eyewitness encounters have been of a very large bipedal thing running away through the woods, clearly on their hind legs.
Yeah.
No muzzle. Bears have a muzzle.
Yes.
They also have large ears. And they quite often have a picnic basket under one arm and they wear a tie, a collar, but no shirt and pants.
What is with that?
Yogi Bear was a sex offender. Surely. He's on a registry somewhere. Come on.
Well, yeah.
You know, walking around public parks like that.
I think it's just the one. It's Yellowstone. That's where he stays.
Is that where he is? Is that
Yellowstone
true?
National Park. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
True story. Him and Boo Boo.
There you go. What about Paddington?
That's like Britain. That's UK, man.
Comes from Peru. Deepest, darkest Peru.
Does he?
Yeah. Wears a coat, a hat, and again, no pants.
Okay.
What is
Winnie the Pooh.
What? Winnie the Pooh wears a very stylish
red shirt.
What? I thought it
Polo.
was polo shirt.
Yeah.
Pants?
Nope.
No pants.
Get it.
I don't know where I'm going.
Next week's topic. Pants? Yes or no?
How would a bear wear pants on its hind legs only, or would it be over all four legs?
Yeah, okay. That's your argument for next week.
Moving on. What was my argument this week, James? I can't. So, mistaken identity, almost certainly, some cases, yeah, no doubt. But there's a great big flaw in that argument. One last thing that I want to talk about, just on mistaken identity. There's a fantastic set of trail photos. So, you know, hunters, conservationists, wildlife enthusiasts will often put up automatic cameras in the woods. Yeah, so if anything walks across a path, it'll get a quick snapshot of that animal. That technology has provided some of the best/worst mugshots of Bigfoot you've ever seen, and oh boy, I've seen a few of them. In the research for this, there have been some absolute doozies. You know, some of the best gorilla masks I've ever seen. You know, but one of them in particular, it's called the Jacobs. I'll get this right. Yeah, named after the two brothers that took the photos on a trail cam in the woods outside of Pennsylvania. This happened in 2007. March the 4th. Not making that up. March the 4th.
Got that written down?
Got that written down. The photos were taken at exactly 12:22 in the PM.
Okay, so just after lunch.
I meant AM. In the early morning. So these
things had night vision.
It did. It's sort of that black to white to grey kind of night vision. Yeah. Not green, but that sort of flash.
Okay.
Night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That flash effect. So the reason why these are so interesting, these photos, is because there's a whole series of them. And the first couple show black bear cubs very clearly in detail roaming around this area.
Yep.
And then another creature, which is clearly not a black bear cub. And the best theory is that it's a small baby Bigfoot. And the reason why people are saying it's a Bigfoot, not a bear, for one thing, its back legs are way too long. This creature's in sort of weird poses. It's kind of, if you imagine like an A-frame kind of a stance, like it's got long back legs, it's bent at the hip, and it's leaning down towards the ground. So this creature is just not behaving in these photos like a bear would. If you zoom in on the face, there's no long muzzle, there's no big flappy ears. People naturally come about and say, well, it's a bear with mange. That's why it doesn't look as furry. But a bear, when it gets mange, loses its fur, not its muzzle and not its ears, you see. And it also doesn't start pitching itself up like an A-frame tent and bending at the waist. You know, if it was going to do that, it would just get low to the ground and sniff it. This thing's gone from a standing position to bending right at the hips to look down and sniff it. It's sort of the most compelling cross-examination that sort of disproves this whole notion that every Bigfoot sighting is misidentification.
Yeah.
And it's some of the best footage that we have. So, I mean, in summarizing, we don't have a body, but we do have footprints. We do have some very enthusiastic researchers, and we've got to have an open mind. James, are you convinced, at least at the idea, are you at least convinced that there could well be a large bipedal ape roaming the wilds of the United States and Canada?
So I'm going to say that, yes, I'm certainly open to the idea.
I win!
But I think you had it really easy this week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I've seen Bigfoot.
Okay, listeners, James has been teasing this since we broached this topic. And he keeps saying that he has some sort of a story, and I thought it was one of your family, because you've got family in Colorado?
In California.
California,
Yeah,
there you go. Okay, I'm really keen to hear this now. I've been looking forward to hearing this story all week.
All right, so as far as much as I can remember, I lived in the US. I was born in Australia. You always get this fact wrong. I was born here. Moved to the US for a small period.
Can I just interrupt? I've demonstrated today that I never get facts wrong. Thank you very much.
So I did, when I was young, I did live in the US for a few years, and we lived in Texas at one point, just outside of Dallas. I was probably about 3 or 4. I reckon about 4. We went to see The Lion King. My brother, myself, and some other kids our age. We walked out of the cinemas, and sort of behind the cinemas was this it was a little bit cleared out. They were obviously clearing these woods. So there's a few fallen trees, cut down trees, but then behind that it's just woods, like thick, tall, massive trees. And one of the other kids shouts out, "What's that?" We all look up, and there's this creature walking over this stump into the woods.
No.
We ran up. We couldn't. There was a fence there. We couldn't chase after this thing, but we ran as close as we could. And this thing, we had no idea what it was. I swear, Bigfoot walked over this stump and into the woods.
Wow.
Yeah. And granted, okay, I was like 4 years old, so my memory may be a little bit hazy, but that stuck with me because of how significant you could imagine that would be.
Well, this is something that whenever you hear an eyewitness encounter, and it's so easy just to dismiss it. It's so easy to go, oh, that guy didn't know what he saw, or you were 4 years old and you're misremembering. It's so easy, but so many of these encounters are so earnest and so heartfelt. You know, doing my research, I watched countless hours of testimonials from people that have got no reason to lie. In a lot of cases, if you come out and say, I saw Bigfoot, that's it. You're a crank.
Oh, man. Nobody's going to believe me anything I say come Monday.
Exactly right. Yeah, your credibility is in the toilet.
It's gone.
And I'm questioning our business arrangement here already. But which isn't I don't know that that's fair. I also don't think that that's scientific. You know, science is all about the pursuit of truth through evidence, reviewal.
And unfortunately, eyewitness testimony isn't really great evidence
No,
when
it's
it comes
not.
to science.
It's not. No, unfortunately, yeah. Well, there you go. Okay, so James, you are convinced.
Yeah, there could definitely be a Bigfoot type creature.
Fantastic. Well, to round up my argument, which has gone very over time, I'm sorry about that, James, but
bumper episode.
There you go. First one, let's start off with a bang. Let's go for 3 hours. Okay, so James, you're convinced of my argument. Can you convince me?
I really hope so. And I mean, you seemed really prepared. In comparison, my argument doesn't really seem anywhere near as long and well thought out as yours.
Oh, good. Emphasis on the long here.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I don't need a long argument to convince you.
I am very easily persuaded.
Yeah, okay.
Convince me.
I'm going to convince you. Okay. So, my subject this week, I have chosen I think equally as popular cryptid.
It's certainly as famous.
As famous, yeah. I've gone with the Loch Ness Monster.
Brilliant.
Affectionately known as Nessie.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously believed to live in Loch Ness in the Scottish Highlands.
I'll stop you there because everyone else calls it Nessie. I refer to it as Jim.
Jim.
I've always called it Jim.
Well, I mean, we've discussed this. Obviously, these creatures to have existed as long as they have, it's not one creature, you know. So there could be a Jim. You know?
Could have been.
Could be a Nessie, a Jim, a Cassandra. We don't know.
A Carl.
We named it Nessie, and that's what we're going with. All right. So, obviously, the most popular depiction of Nessie is that of a plesiosaur. Obviously a marine reptile. from the Cretaceous. Well, the last time the sort of fossil evidence was during the Cretaceous period. So the plesiosaur sort of disappeared during the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction event some 66 million years ago. Fun fact, actually, on that. Because of the plesiosaur's association with Nessie, paleontologists often actually have to convince people, no, this thing actually existed. A plesiosaur is real.
No.
Like, people just think Nessie is a plesiosaur. Nessie may not be real, but
Right.
no, a plesiosaur is a real thing. And I found that fascinating.
That's incredible. Because you and I are we're dinosaur
enthusiasts.
But that's amazing to me that people. I thought you were going to talk about how people mistake plesiosaurs as dinosaurs. They weren't. They were a marine, as you said,
a marine
reptile that went extinct at the same time. I didn't
But
realize.
people just assume that because people say Nessie's a plesiosaur, that's not a real thing. That's a mythical cryptid.
Oh, that's
but
incredible.
no, they did exist. But that's sort of not the only explanation. People say, and still cryptids say it could be an enlarged, a gigantic eel, a species of gigantic eel, or another cryptid I discovered this week, the long-necked seal.
Interesting.
So, describe, the picture, the famous picture, which I'll get into, but that neck that sticks out. So theorizing that that's actually a seal that's
interesting.
Evolved to have a long neck for some reason or another. So, Nessie, from Loch Ness, which is a deep freshwater loch in the Scottish Highlands. It runs for about 37 kilometres southwest of Inverness, and I hope I'm saying that right.
Inverness.
Yeah, okay.
You've got to exacerbate
You've got to have the accent.
The E and the S.
So it's about 37 kilometres long. It averages between about 1 to 2 kilometres at its widest. So that's a lot of area. 230 metres deep at its deepest point.
So you're saying this is a big lake?
This is a big span of water. Something could be easily in there, well hidden and undiscovered for a long time.
Could I swim across it?
1 kilometre, 2 at its widest. Yes, you could.
I think almost certainly no.
But you maybe shouldn't.
I think the key in this argument is, could I?
Could you? No.
No.
Could you?
Oh, God.
No. And of course, there is very, very low visibility in the water due to the high peat content in the surrounding soil.
High peat content?
Like decayed vegetation, organic matter.
Okay.
So it's sort of like marshland nearby, evidently. And something of interest is that the loch is actually connected to the ocean via the River Ness and the Caledonian Canal. But a lot of people question, I guess, some of the issues that come up here. Is the water too cold to support something like a plesiosaur?
Okay.
The loch was only formed about 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. So some people sort of theorize that maybe Nessie was frozen for a period of time and thawed out. This is true. People theorize that during the ice age, frozen, and then thawed out in the loch.
Okay. I am keeping an open mind.
Please do. And obviously, being that this is a creature from... If Nessie is a plesiosaur, this is a creature from 66 million years ago, and 10,000 years ago for the last ice age there's millions of years unaccounted for. And people do argue that perhaps the loch would be too small and have an insufficient food supply to support a breeding colony.
Well, going back to what I was saying, if that creature exists and it's as large as we theorize it to be, then again, the population of it would be very small to begin with.
Yes, I actually, when you were saying that, I was thinking, well, this is perfect for my argument.
Sure.
It's obviously a very small colony if it does exist in the loch. And I think the thing is here, we don't really know exactly what Nessie is. Theorize that it's a plesiosaur. It could be something smaller. It could be a plesiosaur relative. It's not an actual plesiosaur.
A descendant.
Over 66 million years of evolution. Yep. So the water's too cold? Well, no, it's adapted. And as I mentioned, this loch is connected to the ocean. So potentially, it is a freshwater loch. But potentially, it could be moving between the two bodies. It could have adapted to, because saltwater crocodiles very often have been discovered in fresh bodies of fresh water.
Well, what's amazing, the term saltwater crocodile is misleading because the largest populations we find in freshwater river systems.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So yeah,
that's
it's,
no
it's
barrier.
certainly possible that
Of
there
course.
could be especially a reptilian creature.
Yep.
That could be moving between two bodies of water. So perhaps I'm theorizing here that maybe the loch is just the breeding grounds for Nessie. That's why it's coming back, breeding, and then heading back out to the ocean. And maybe that's why the colony is so small. Is there's only a few that stick around during breeding season.
Oh, I like that,
And the rest
James.
are
That's-
out wherever else.
That's a good theory. I
Yeah.
like. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's very possible this creature has adapted over time to sort of fit this particular environment. I think
Yes.
these arguments against why this couldn't be sustained in the loch are just they're not strong enough in my opinion.
Okay. There are holes you can blow in the arguments as
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
the loch. The nature of the
Me
loch.
as a non-scientist,
That's right.
blowing these scientific arguments out the window.
We are making some big assertions here, aren't we?
We
as
are.
two complete amateurs.
We really are, but it's great. It's entertaining, I think. So on that, I want to go into sort of the first sightings of Nessie. I've actually managed to date this back to, well, not specifically. I'm not, it's not the 12th of March, 565, but it was circa 565.
What
AD.
time of day was it?
I imagine it was 1:57 p.m. in the afternoon.
Thank you for
All
the
right.
PM. Yes.
Yep.
I've got a clear image in my head now.
But okay, so the first sightings do go back circa 565 AD. Yes, so like 1500 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So the story, it's an Irish monk named Saint Columba. He and his companions, they encountered local residents burying a man by the river Ness. So it's not actually in the loch, but the river connects to the loch.
Yes.
So like I said, this creature could be moving up and down this river.
No doubt. Yeah.
So they asked these local residents, like, what's going on? They said, well, the man was swimming in the river when he was mauled and dragged underwater by a water beast.
A water
beast.
There's
They have such elegant words.
There's nothing suspect about this scenario whatsoever, by the way.
No, not at all.
Not an ounce of unfair play going on at all here.
Okay, no, but here's the thing. So Columba thought, well, we've got to find out for sure. So the only scientific way, he decided to send one of his followers to swim across the river.
Oh, absolutely.
And immediately, this beast came out of the water. So St. Columba saw this beast come out and approach his follower, and he made the sign of the cross, if you want to believe that, made the sign of the cross, and the beast buggered off, like froze and then moved away. They thought it was a miracle. But St. Columba claims to have laid eyes on this beast, warded him off. Yeah, so they found this. They saw this creature in the River Ness.
Okay. Saint Columba is like the first Scottish superhero, with the ability to ward off monsters just by making.
He was an Irish.
Irish. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will concede though. I will bring up the fact though. This story that occurred in around 565 AD. The story appears in the Life of Saint Columba, which is by I'm going to get this so wrong. Adomnan. Life of St. Columba, it was written about a century after the events occurred.
Okay.
So it could be a bit dubious. Some things could have got lost to time.
That's the year 500's equivalent to grainy footage shot on a
exactly.
phone then, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
No, it's real. And you're looking at it going, yeah, no, mate, I believe you, but it's not the best, is it?
No, it could have been better.
Were you there at the time? Happened 100 years ago, did it? Okay. Yeah, righto.
But that's how early these sightings go back to, which I think is a fascinating point that people have been seeing this creature for, like I said, 1,500 years.
Yep.
They've been seeing something.
Yes.
So obviously, there's the surgeon's photograph.
I've heard of the surgeon's photograph.
Yes.
And was that the one you were describing when you said the long neck seal?
The long neck sort of sticking out of the water.
Out of the water.
That's all you sort of see.
Okay. I know this one. And like the Patterson-Gimlin, the most famous footage of this creature. It's the one that everyone thinks of.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this photo was taken by Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London gynecologist. He actually didn't want his name attached. We're being mature here.
I am being mature. Sorry, did you say he didn't want his name attached to it?
He didn't want his name attached to the photo, so that's why it's known as the surgeon's photograph.
But you just attached his name to the photo.
Oh, sorry, Robert, if you're listening. At some point, obviously, it's been revealed that he was the photographer of this photo, but that's where it gets the name, the surgeon's photograph.
Okay.
It was published in the Daily Mail. I've got the date here, April 21st, 1934.
Fact.
Yes. Yep. Obviously, immediately intensely scrutinized. Skeptics dismissed it. It's an otter. It's driftwood. It's sort of some other mundane object.
Bloody skeptics, mate.
Something straight off the bat. Everybody's going to be analyzing this thing.
Keep an open mind, people.
And skeptics also point out the photo often gets shown cropped. And that gives the appearance that the ripples in the photo are actually waves, making the creature in the photo look a lot larger than it actually is.
Okay.
So if you do see the full photo, you kind of realize this thing isn't that big.
What are they false perspective?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
This photo has sort of been allegedly debunked. So in 1975, a man, Ian Wetherell, he alleged that his father Duke had faked the photos. And this story was later supported by Ian's stepbrother, Christian Sperling. So the story goes, as Christian told it, that in 1933, the Daily Mail hired Duke to find the monster.
Okay.
So Duke went to the loch, where he discovered some strange tracks at the lake, and he made plaster. Not pasta, but plaster cast.
No, that's his first mistake. No, you've got to get some linguine.
Yep.
You've got to boil up the water, wait till the water is roiling and bubbling on top.
Yep.
Add the pasta,
Yeah.
and then pour it liberally all over the footprint.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Amateur
hour.
He took these casts and he sent them to the London Museum of Natural History to be analysed. And they've come back and said, well, no, these aren't a mysterious creature. These belong to a hippo. Now, I was really confused by this. I couldn't get any more information.
Mr. James, Mr. James, I have some questions.
There are not hippos in the loch. I was really confused though. I wanted more information here. I'm going to keep digging. But they said the London Museum of Natural History said it was likely made by a dried foot from part of an umbrella stand or ashtray.
Now,
so did people in the 1930s make ashtrays and umbrella stands out of hippo feet?
The worst thing is, I've heard that before.
Okay. But so somebody's taken this dried hippo foot out.
Okay.
Somebody from the Daily Mail, maybe, because Duke's really mad.
Right.
He's been hoaxed himself. He approaches Christian, his stepson. Christian's a model maker by trade.
Okay.
And he pretty much says, if they want a monster, let's give them a monster. So they go out, they buy a toy submarine. Christian molds this sort of neck over the top of it. And
did he use pasta?
Pasta, probably.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. Okay, they've learnt.
So they went out to the loch, they photographed the monster, they destroyed the prop, and gave the undeveloped photos to Wilson, who then sold them to the Daily Mail.
But they destroyed the monster. They've got no proof they did it.
So here's the thing, though. So that's allegedly been debunked. But Sperling told this story in 1993 to two Loch Ness researchers, David Martin and Alastair Boyd. They didn't share this story with anybody until 1999, after Sperling had passed away.
What is with all of this leaving it 100 years, or that wasn't 100 years, that gap, but what is with people just leaving it that long before they make some sort of a statement about it?
So Christian's told this story, and now he's passed away, and these two men that weren't involved are the only two people that allegedly know that this photo was fake.
Okay.
So there's nobody to ask, there's nobody to check with. So I don't think that's not solid proof that the photo was fake.
So like my Patterson Gimlin footage, yet again, it's a case of it has not been categorically proven to be a hoax.
Yeah.
Therefore, we must keep an open mind.
I think so. Yes.
I'm keeping an open mind.
Please do. And then we'll go back to the point I said. Often the photo is shown zoomed in, right? Showing a smaller creature. Baby Nessie.
I see.
Breeding colony.
As
like I said,
breeding colony.
Full circle. We're coming back around.
They are coming from... this is on the west coast of Scotland, did you say?
It's the
Did
highland.
you say?
It's sort of... I didn't say. I think it's sort of the north east.
Right.
Sort of central highlands, I guess.
They're coming in from the North Sea somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a large population of them roaming around up there. Every now and then, some of them get a little bit cheeky, couple of winks thrown across the ocean at a couple of young kid Nessies, and they go, "Shall we? What do you reckon? Shall we
back to Loch Ness?
Do you want to come back to the Ness?
Come back to the Loch?
I don't know.
Loch Ness and chill.
I don't know if I'm ready. What's the worst that can happen? It's not like a gynecologist from London is going to take a photo of us. I'm convinced.
You are? Oh, well, I'm not going to stop there, though, because I love this next part.
Great.
In 1987, what took place? None other than Operation Deep Scan.
Okay, no, I've heard of this, but please do go on.
I love that name, Operation Deep Scan.
Scan.
Somebody slept in. The guy on the naming committee slept in that day. Okay, he shows up and he's like so tired. He hasn't had his coffee.
Yep.
You know, and they've gone, okay, Mike, what did you come up with? He's gone, Deep Scan.
I like to think of Mike sitting in his chair going, oh, crap, was this meeting today?
Oh.
Mike, you lovable rogue, you.
So in Operation Deep Scan, there were 24 boats that were equipped with echo sounder, like sonar equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So they went out across the loch and they sent acoustic waves over 3 days. Scientists made contact with an unidentified object of unusual size.
Ooh.
Upon analysis of these echo sounder images, they saw it sort of indicated there was just debris at the bottom of the loch. But in 3 of the pictures, there was motion. So one researcher said that these sonar traces would be consistent with a creature or creatures larger than a shark but smaller than a whale.
Interesting. Okay.
So there's something quite sizable in the loch that they've picked up.
But interestingly enough, though, whenever we in sort of pop culture discuss Nessie or this creature, it's a huge thing, isn't it?
It's usually quite large. Yeah.
And that's still pretty big what you're describing. But
well, it depends. Yeah, what kind of shark, I guess.
Well, it's real world big, isn't it? I mean, let's be real. It's not going to be the size of Godzilla. It's not going to be this ginormous 30-meter long thing the size of a double-decker bus if it's real. Sorry.
No.
More proof.
There was something in this loch that they discovered on these images. Adrian Shrine, he was the project leader for Operation Deep Scan, speculated that these traces they might have just been seals which had entered the loch.
Okay.
They're going to come back to the long-necked seal. You know, could still be one of our cryptids.
Absolutely.
All I'm trying to pitch to you is a Loch Ness monster, a cryptid living in the loch.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
In any case, the boats failed to pick up any traces when they went back to the same location on days 2 and 3. So whatever was there has moved on.
Okay. Back out to the open ocean because they've both got school in the morning.
Yeah.
And their parents would be worried.
Exactly.
And they've already breached curfew.
Yep.
And she's like totally going to get like grounded, totally. And my dad is going to like lose his mind if I don't get home soon.
A number of the echo sounder units were donated by sonar expert Daryl Lowrance.
Round of applause.
Lowrance. That actually is his name.
Great.
Upon examining one of the sonar returns, it was taken at a depth of 180 meters. So pretty deep.
That is deep.
Remember, at the deepest point, this loch is 230 meters deep.
Can I say I've run both of those distances when I was in primary school for Sapsaza. I ran 100 meters. Doesn't feel like a long way when you're sprinting it, but when you look at it,
but like run
down, straight
downwards.
down.
Yeah.
That's a long way.
So almost 2 of those straight down, 180 meters.
Yeah.
And Daryl said, "There's something here that we don't understand, and there's something here that's larger than a fish. Maybe some species that hasn't been detected before. I don't know."
Definition of a cryptid.
Yeah.
Definition.
So I want to point out to you that Nessie isn't sort of the only lake monster in the world.
Ooh, I was hoping you'd go into this.
Yeah.
Again, this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I know a little bit about a lot of cryptids. But please do push on because I was hoping you would bring this up.
I mean, I don't have time to go over all of them. There is a massive list. I did sort of cull through because not all of them seem to match the description, but a fair few do match the description of Nessie. Also in the Scottish Highlands, Loch Morar,
Nailed it.
Morag, a creature described exactly like Nessie, which I think is far too convenient. Another creature in the same area, same part of the world, matching the same description.
Now, that's not where I thought you were going to go.
Okay.
I'll be honest. That's a new one to me.
Yeah,
Morag.
So Morag. So again, another similar creature in the same sort of area. I don't know if it's Bow Nessie or Bow Nessie. I'm going to go with Bow Nessie in Windermere, England. Again, very similar to Nessie. Again, geographically, a very similar area.
Another one I didn't know about.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I wonder if I'm even going to touch on the ones that you know about.
Oh,
I don't have too many because I thought I could just get carried away here.
sure.
In Flathead Lake, Montana, there
Mhm.
is the Flathead Lake monster. I would say that's a ridiculous name, but
But
we're
it
talking
is.
about the Loch Ness monster.
Fair
so
point.
in
Okay.
Loch Ness, this is usually described as an eel-type creature, but again, back to that gigantic eel. You know,
Mhm.
the people are saying it's people in Flat Lake say it's a creature similar to Nessie.
There you go. Okay.
But I guess describing Nessie as a gigantic eel.
Mhm.
And in Lake Tahoe, there is Tahoe Tessie.
No.
Yeah, Tahoe Tessie. They say either a large serpentine body,
Mhm.
again, gigantic eel, or a plesiosaur.
Tahoe Tessie sounds like a stripper.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or just like the person that takes charge at the local square dance, pretty much. You know.
Howdy, folks. I'm Tahoe
Tahoe
Tessie. Grab your partner.
Swing 'em round.
Country references.
So that's Tahoe Tessie, again described similar like a plesiosaur.
Uh-huh.
So I think it's interesting that there are other creatures that are being found in lakes described as very similar to Nessie. Like we're talking about, this potentially could be a plesiosaur.
Yes.
And they may not necessarily have just been confined to Scotland, to the UK.
Multiple breeding sites.
Yeah, we're talking about if this creature is a plesiosaur and has survived somehow for 66 million years. It could have diversified out across the oceans. We're talking. I said this creature could be breeding and moving out, existing in the ocean.
Absolutely.
So at some point or another, maybe during that ice age.
Yep.
Somehow found itself in these different locations in Lake Tahoe, in the Flathead Lake.
The one I thought you were going to mention.
Yeah, go on.
In Lake Champlain.
Champ.
Champ. You did look into Champ.
Yeah. That's all. I didn't write Champ down.
I was waiting for. Well, funny you mentioned Champ. I've got a whole paragraph on him here.
No.
Well,
sorry. Do you know more about Champ?
No, only in the sense that he is called Champ. He lives in Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
And is a Nessie type creature.
Yeah.
That's the one I've heard of. Yeah.
So really, what I'm theorizing here is that that potentially a plesiosaur type creature could have survived this long, just 66 million years, evolved obviously, and found itself in various different locations around the world, and that's why all these other sightings are coming up, not just in Loch Ness. But I guess sort of to wrap up, made the point, we don't really know what Nessie is.
Right.
Like I said, several different hypotheses for type of creature it could be. We don't know what it is or how big it is. There is a lot of space in the loch for Nessie to hide. It's obviously got to be the whole breeding colony is hiding in this loch. But it could be moving between the loch and the ocean. But because we don't know the size, the type of creature this is, who says how big the actual breeding colony has to be?
Sure.
The loch is plenty big.
Yep.
And we do have to. You sort of had touched on this, I guess, that the colonies, the breeding colonies of Bigfoot and probably Nessie as well, would be quite small. And there's every possibility that at this point in time they could have died out.
Sure. Yeah.
And we're not going to find those remains at the bottom of the loch.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped my pen.
Oh, that scared the absolute bejesus out of me. Okay.
So we're not going to find, if that has happened, we're not going to find these remains.
No.
At the bottom of the loch.
No.
But that could have happened.
Unless we drain the loch.
Let's do it. Next week.
Let's go. Next week.
Are you convinced? We convinced the Scottish government to let us drain the loch.
Their answer may surprise you.
Tune in.
That'd be a no.
So, yeah, I mean, the colony could have died out. Very possible.
Yeah.
But I think the evidence is strong that at some point there has been or is a mysterious creature that exists in Loch Ness.
Bravo.
Are you convinced?
Bravo, James. Okay, can I be really honest with you? I wanted to give you a really funny answer because this is a bizarre topic, especially a bizarre topic to start on in our first podcast. I was not convinced walking in. However,
okay.
As soon as you started talking about how, people talk about it being a plesiosaur, but if we open up to the fact that we're only saying there's a large thing in this lake that we don't recognise that we can't understand, I'm a little bit convinced. There's no reason why. I was ready to give you a firm no.
No.
Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And now it's
But the question is, Loch Ness monster, whatever it might be. Are you convinced?
now it's a very long drawn out yeah.
On that note, I guess we want to know what people think. Did I convince you about Loch Ness?
Did I convince you about Bigfoot?
Please share your thoughts. Are you convinced? Do you have any evidence? Either way, for or against. We'd love to hear it.
We want sightings.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. We actually discussed this before the start of the show. A great topic, a great question to put to our viewers.
Are we really asking this?
Yeah, I think so.
Great,
So
go for it.
Damon, who do you think would win in a fight between Bigfoot and Nessie?
As we discussed, James, I think it would all come down to the environment.
The battlefield. Is it on land or is it on water?
And if it's in water, Bigfoot. No, sorry. Long odds on Bigfoot in water. But if we were to say we take Bigfoot and Nessie and put them in a UFC octagon... Well, hang on. We don't even know.
Just generally, I think pitch your scenarios. How would Bigfoot win? How would Nessie win? We want to know. What are your thoughts?
By your argument, we don't even know what Nessie is.
No, it could be anything.
It
could be Bigfoot.
Bigfoot on holiday.
Exactly.
I've got the family pass here somewhere. Was it in my jacket pocket? Charlie, run to the car. Check Dad's jacket pockets, please, for the family pass.
But yes, please do share your thoughts. Did we convince you? And what do you generally think about the podcast? Did you enjoy it? Do you have any criticisms? Because we do want to know. If you enjoyed it, we want to keep doing it, obviously. If you didn't enjoy it, we want to make it better. And
you can leave those comments on our Twitter and Instagram pages. Let me see if I can get this right. Twitter and Instagram at Are You Convinced? Search Are You Convinced on Facebook.
The link, if you want to go straight there, is facebook.com/areyouconvinced.podcast. Please share your thoughts. Suggest a topic, because we're going to keep doing this sort of...
please
we're going to try to do weekly. So if you've got any sort of umbrella topic that you want to pitch to us to be discussed, please let us know. We have picked next week's topic.
We have.
What are we doing?
We are doing bad movies. Sorry, the best bad movie. Only the best for our listeners, James.
So the idea here, we won't go into much detail about what we're going to be discussing specifically, but the idea is that each of us is going to convince the other person there's a bad movie out there that they have to watch. We'll each pick our movies, and we'll be back next week. All going well, it will be a weekly thing. Mm-hmm. To discuss best bad movies. But that's pretty much it. I guess we just say thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope you've enjoyed our very first episode of Are You Convinced? We'll catch you next time.
See you next week. Thanks for listening.